And there they are on draft day, live from Green Bay. Site of it all. Ryan Clark, Mina Kimes. Morning, guys. How we doing?
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
I was going to rock that shirt today.
Which one?
In that color. But I saw Ryan on Get Up this morning, and I said my brother would look better than me in that shirt. I can't do that to myself today, so I didn't do it. I didn't do it.
You got to wait to see what I got on later, though.
Okay. Oh, you know I'm going to be looking.
Wait till later.
Oh, you know I'm going to.
Okay.
You better
Yeah,
represent.
wait till later.
You better represent. I'm going to be talking about you.
RC.
You better represent.
RC, give us a hint real quick. What color are you going?
Oh, I'm going blue. I'm going blue. I got a navy vest, and then I got the checkerboard up top.
She asked you what color, bro. She didn't ask you to give her all the information.
It's called a tease in this business.
Tease. You got to tease, Mr. Pivot. You got to pivot to the tease.
Oh, my gosh. Hi, Mina. All right, let's go, guys. ESPN's Field Yates released his final mock draft heading into tonight's draft.
Ooh.
Yates has Shedeur Sanders falling again, and the Browns making the trade back into the first round to take Sanders with the 29th pick of the draft. Okay, what?
Come on, Mina. Help me out here. He's 29 now, Mina. He's 29th now, Mina. Come on, girl. Come on.
Steve, you know, we talked about this in LA in the commercial break. I want him to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21, which weeks ago would have been perceived as an incredible fall, and now we're talking about 29. But I see that as being a great fit for both sides. From Sanders' perspective, you know, typically when quarterbacks are drafted in the first round, they end up in lackluster situations. That's not the case here. It'd actually be a great situation for him. We saw Pittsburgh is a playoff team, obviously. They are the closest to being the, quote, quarterback away team. You know, some issues on the offensive line, but I think they're trending in the right direction, particularly on the interior. Trade for DK Metcalf after Ward, who's my quarterback one. He's accurate, he's tough, throws the ball over the middle of the field, throws with anticipation. So I view that marriage as making a lot of sense, certainly a lot more sense than anything else I imagine Pittsburgh would do at that point.
RC?
Yeah, and what's wild about it, Stephen A., like, I get what you're saying, too, right? It's like he's the 29th pick. Now, right, he's a guy that when the evaluation process started in January, we were speaking, okay, who's going to go first at the quarterback position? Will it be Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders? And very quickly, that separation seemed to be made, but it felt like Shedeur Sanders was number 2, and he was a first-round draft pick, and that's exactly what it was going to stay throughout this process. And that's changed. And when you hear whether it's Adam Schefter, whether it's Field Yates, Mel Kiper, Peter Schrager now who works with us, when they start to put out these mock drafts close to the draft day, it's because of what they're hearing on the phone, not because of what they believe on the tape. So somewhere in this process, teams have thought differently of Shedeur Sanders than many of us did at the end of the season. But what we have to get out of our mind is that first mock draft or that first conversation we have, that's just all conjecture. That's all us trying to be prophets and say this is exactly what we see happening in 3 months. If this is where he is, I'm with Mina. Sometimes you can fall to a better situation, and in being drafted, it's not when you're drafted, it's where you're drafted to, who you're going to play with, and I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers is that place.
Fair enough, and I believe it as well. No doubt about it. I hope he ends up with the Pittsburgh Steelers, please. But that doesn't negate what's transpiring. So when we see the skepticism that has been thrown in the direction of Shedeur Sanders, right? And we wonder how that may impact his draft status. Somebody just reminded me that sometimes that's done on purpose because people who covet you have a lower pick and they're trying to manipulate you falling so you can end up in their hands. That's not beyond the realm of comprehension in the National Football League. And if that's the case, although I don't like it, I would understand it better as opposed to what my primary concern is, which is Deion Sanders being who he is, knowing football the way he does, being as accomplished as he is, having the kind of impact on his son as a father, having the inside context in the National Football League. Somebody might be looking at that situation and saying, we don't want to deal with that prospect. And that negatively affects Shedeur Sanders. I would find that incredibly unfortunate and unfair to that kid and the primetime Deion Sanders, but I ain't ruling out that as a possibility either, y'all.
All right, Mina, I want to ask you this. So Adam Schefter reported earlier this morning that the Broncos have fielded calls in recent days from teams interested in potentially moving up to their 20th pick, and that's right before the Steelers at 21. What do you make of that?
You know, I find that a little puzzling. We've been talking about which teams might trade back up into the first round to take one of these quarterbacks, and the Giants and the Browns, teams picking at the top of the draft, are the ones that have come to mind. Outside of them, though, and Ryan, there's no one else really that makes sense to me. And both those two teams, I do think it's a possibility that they looked at the top of the draft and they said, there are two generational players potentially in this draft, in Hunter and Carter. We have to take them, but we also need quarterbacks. Let's see if we can move back up. But outside of those, again, speaking of the Browns and the Giants, Ryan, can't really think of another team. I know the Saints are one that are being discussed, but I just don't see that happening. How about you?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, you look at, I think it's those three teams, right? If you're the New Orleans Saints and you like one of these quarterbacks, whether it's Shedeur or Jackson Dart, but you don't like them at number 9, maybe you do fight up to get to 20 because you don't know if the Steelers would select Shedeur or Jackson Dart if he's your favorite. And obviously the two teams in Cleveland and New York as well. Molly, if it's okay, I want to go back to something Stephen A. said about the Deion Sanders effect, though.
Please.
Here is what I do believe that, though. See, like Eli Manning, right? We knew that Archie Manning would interfere in some way because the Manning family said that Eli wasn't going to the West Coast and play. They didn't have to infer. They didn't have to project. They didn't have to say to themselves, okay, will the Manning family be involved in Eli's process in any way? They didn't have to do that because they showed you. They told you. They manipulated. They maneuvered to make sure Eli Manning was in New York. But for New York, whether it was the Manning name, whether it was the way Archie and Peyton were perceived, respected, the way they were digested, that was okay for that family. And maybe it was the fact that they thought Eli Manning was so talented, a future Hall of Famer, that they would say to themselves, it doesn't matter if this family would interfere. Or there's an actual issue with Deion Sanders, and I think at some point as well, Mina, Molly, Stephen A., we are going to have to accept also Shedeur may not be that physically gifted to people. Right. I'm not saying he can't play the position. I'm not saying he can't do all of these things that makes playing the quarterback position at a high level extremely possible. But when you watch him, they may not feel, hey, even if Deion interferes, it's okay because he's Patrick Mahomes. And I think that can be a part of what we're hearing throughout this process as well.
I want to be very clear to you and Mina.